let's talk about who he's going to be facing next. How about that? Let's talk about who he's going to be facing next. So we have a story here. Who somebody who didn't say nice things about Governor DeSantis. What page is that story on, by the way?
You're talking about Nikki Fried?
Yeah, Nikki Fried.
Yeah,
is it page 2? Okay, let's go through. There you go, page 2. Okay. So DeSantis, Democrat challenger, compares him to Hitler in a lot of ways. This is a Yahoo News story. Florida Agriculture Commission Democratic gubernatorial candidate Nikki Fried sat down for an interview Friday and compared Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. Instead of listening and trying to govern with the people, he is trying to govern over people. And you know that, I'm sorry, I'm a student of history too. I saw the rise of Hitler. Fried, 42, told podcast co-host Melissa Ross on Florida's public radio on Friday regarding Florida's Governor DeSantis. When Ron asked Fried if she was making a direct comparison between DeSantis and Hitler, the agriculture criminal said, in a lot of ways, yes, I've studied Hitler and how he got to power, wanting his own militia. Fried explained, referencing DeSantis' move to reestablish a state guard with 22 other states also utilized in case of emergency. The reason why this governor wants it is different than the other states that have been utilizing it for emergency purposes. The governor is doing it for the sole purpose of power, and doing so makes fear and blaming certain parts of society and culture, and that's exactly what Hitler did to the Jews back in World War II. So when you hear comments like this being said, and then your comments back in this article is Nikki Fried's claim that Governor DeSantis is a modern-day Hitler is as offensive as it is absurd. With the hysterical comparison, Fried not only smears millions of Floridians as Nazis, but also trivializes Hitler's crime against humanity. What do you have to say about Nikki Fried as a competitor, as an opponent?
Look, I mean, she's not serious. Anyone who could say something like that, number one, she's 44 years old. She didn't see the rise of Hitler. And it's offensive because actually there are some people in Florida who are Holocaust survivors, who did see the rise of Hitler, who did experience these atrocities that she and I and us, we cannot imagine that. And so when she comes out and tries to compare our governor to Hitler, it's sick, it's offensive. A number of Jewish organizations came out and explained why it's offensive. I kind of touched on it in my quote, but at the end of the day, that is an inappropriate comparison. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, whether you can disagree with somebody without taking that step, particularly because the way she explains it about the state guard, as the reporter said to her, 22 other states have this. California has it. New York has it. States where there are natural disasters that are very prone to natural disasters, like Florida, can really benefit from it because essentially it just helps with the National Guard. Right now, Florida National Guard is deployed to Ukraine, of all places. They're called up on a federal mission because National Guard can also, they're actually on federal missions more than they're on state missions. So in a state like Florida, where we get hurricanes and we get natural disasters, we could use that extra force, that extra team of volunteers who are trained to respond to emergencies. And to compare that to the Gestapo, I mean, that is sick. It's offensive to people who actually went through it. And it's offensive to those who are just trying to help their state today. So I don't think people take Nikki Fried very seriously, particularly after this. But it is just very sad that this is the level of political debate that we're having.
Adam, what do you think about that? I mean, as a Floridian yourself, you hear a comment like that taking place from somebody who's going up against DeSantis. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is somebody that's pro concealed weapon. She's okay with you. So she's got some interesting beliefs. First woman to be elected as a Florida Commissioner of Agriculture, pro-concealed carry and pro-medical marijuana, referred to Governor DeSantis as Hitler, obviously. Only Democrat to win a statewide office in 2018 elections. One of 17 speakers to jointly deliver keynote as Democratic National Convention, the DNC. Graduated from University of Florida, master's in political campaigning. Supports voting rights for felons, excluding murderers and sex offenders. What do you think about when you hear somebody like this make a comment like this?
I don't know much about Nikki Fried. I think she did graduate from University of Florida, and she's a few years older than us. But here's what I'll say about the Hitler thing. And full disclosure, I'm Jewish. I had my grandparents, family, cousins. They died in Nazi Germany. You said it trivializes exactly what he did. Now, it does one of two things, for me at least. Any person with common sense, I'm not even talking Republican, Democrat, just common sense is going to look at this and be like, what the are you talking about here? Do you understand how stupid this makes you look? And just because Ron DeSantis might have more conservative values, he's fucking Hitler? What are we talking about here? But then, So anyone with common sense is just like, whatever. But then there's going to be people who listen to this and maybe don't follow the news or follow media. And they're like, no, he's a Hitler. Yeah. And they go down this rabbit hole of just absurdity. And then that begins to pick up fodder. So we've seen it happen. Like people used to say, like, you know, well, George Bush, he's kind of like Hitler. Oh, there's Mitt Romney. You guys, you know, he's like a Hitler. Trump, you know, and just like, okay, enough's enough with the Hitler thing. So for you as the press secretary, your job is to defend Ron DeSantis. Are there certain things that you're just like, listen, this is retarded. This is, I don't want to say that word, but like, this is so absurd that I don't even want to answer this? Or is it like, no, it's my job. I actually have to rebuttal such a ridiculous comment. How does that work for your job?
That's how I see it. It is my job, but it really depends on the source, right? So if it's just a random person tweeting some nonsense about the governor, I'm not going to elevate it or give it attention.
Right.
But if it's a statewide official, which Nikki Fried is, or if it's a major media outlet like the Associated Press, you know, no matter how absurd or ridiculous the line of attack is, I do have to address it. I mean, that is my job. Unfortunately, you know, like I said, I wish we were talking more about substantive issues versus this kind of crazy rhetoric. But, you know, she brought it to that point. So we had to respond. And I think, like I said, there are a lot of folks like you in Florida who have relatives, who have ancestors who actually experienced these crimes in Nazi Germany, who were victims of Hitler. And so to be talking like this for her, it's really inappropriate.
And who is she in the context of the state of Florida? What does she do exactly?
So she's the agriculture commissioner, but
Okay.
that's a really big position in Florida. It not only includes agriculture, which we're a big agricultural state, but also it includes issuing permits for concealed carried weapons. It includes consumer services, so like reports of fraud. Her office handles a lot of stuff related to that. So it's a pretty big position. Unfortunately, though, you know, since she's been elected, she's been campaigning for governor, basically. She's been using her office instead of actually doing her job to help agriculture thrive and to issue these permits. She is just tweeting about Governor DeSantis all day and
Well, she's
trolling him,
attacking,
basically.
you know, the guy at the job. Who,
Right.
in your mind, is the most likely candidate or candidates to face off with Ron DeSantis in November?
Well,
Is it
there's
Charlie Crist? Is he running again
Yeah,
potentially?
because right
Yeah.
now you look in some of the polls. The reason why we brought her up, she just passed up Charlie Crist.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, I mean fundraising. A lot of polls has her ahead of him. Some have him over her. But what is really the biggest difference between him or Charlie Crist?
I mean, Charlie Crist was governor already.
Right.
A few years, and
In
he
the
was
90s,
a Republican when he was governor in the
But then he
early
turned and he
2000s.
became a senator. And
Yeah.
he's as swampy as it gets in Florida. I mean, he's
Right.
been back, forth, left, right, up, down.
Yeah.
Governor, senator, you know.
He's been independent, Republican, Democrat. And so I think that's the big difference. I mean, that he is. So Nikki's younger. She's always been a Democrat. You know, maybe some Democrats would trust her more because of that, that she hasn't been a party switcher. Charlie Crist has been all over the place. I think what's really offensive about Charlie Crist, I mean, there's many things, but one is in 2019, he visited communist Cuba, took pictures with the communist regime there, like with officials there, and that was online as basically pro-government propaganda websites in Cuba are showing this as though Charlie Crist supports them. And I know he said that he was just trying to build the diplomatic relationship. There are a lot of Cuban Americans in Florida, so he thought, you know, this would be a good idea. But I think it's very offensive because the Cuban Americans here, they escaped from that for a reason. And they don't want to, like, see an American politician who wants to represent them legitimizing this regime. It's a brutal regime.
But who sits there and tells you it's a good idea to do that? And by the way, you're representing Florida. Like, I'm curious to know who the marketing person is to say, hey, Charlie, we should go to Florida and take, we should go to
Cuba.
and take a picture. What are you thinking
I
about?
mean, look, I'm glad I'm not his press secretary because I could not make excuses for that. I could not spin that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just sickening. And Governor DeSantis has always been, a huge supporter of freedom in Cuba. And that's why I think, he does have a lot of support among that community. And they can see he's not a dictator. So these comparisons, like Crist actually, after Nikki Fried compared him to Hitler, Crist hit back. He's actually more like Castro.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.